Hi, my name is Ashley Cornwell, and I coach tight ends and coordinate game management for Bucknell football. I have a twin brother that I grew up playing sports with because we came from such a small town. So getting into football, it all started with flag football. You have to do so many years before you start tackling. He tapped out before I did, and then it kind of came to a point where I couldn't play anymore, and that's when I transitioned to coaching, and that started in high school. January of my senior year in high school, I found out, I'm going to go to UW-Madison, and I was like, I just have a feeling that I can have a football career. So what I started doing was just messaging anybody in athletics and in football in particular, like, where can I get a job? How can I help out the team? And I think in July I got rejected for being an equipment manager, which was crazy. But they passed my resume along to start out like filming for the guys. And I got lucky, I got that job starting in July, so I hit the ground running my first year going into college, filming, but then after a month that transitioned into going into recruiting and evaluating the recruits for Wisconsin, who we liked, who we didn't, talking with the coaches and the former chief of staff who used to work there. And then I expressed my interest in coaching and they made it happen. My first responsibility was breaking down all of the special teams phases. I was just given a computer and I was told like, hey, watch some film. But then as I'm watching the film, we have data that overlays on top of the film. So I'm starting to learn the language that they use. And then I just started practicing breaking down a game, showed it to the coach when he came back, and then that was my first responsibility, was breaking down games. And then that transitioned to doing like the entire scouting report for special teams, which transitioned into me doing offensive breakdowns, offensive line, and then it just kept going from there. I got a phone call from the league office saying that they had the International Player Pathway program, and I had gotten a good review on my first NFL internship. So they were like, hey, we think you'd be a good candidate to interview to be the O-line coach for this program. And I said, okay, cool. And I did the interview. They offered me the job and I told them no. And then a week later, I wasn't getting any leads. And I was like, it's not so bad going down to Florida for 2.5 months to find work. And that was my first job. And I always tell everyone that's probably the best coaching job I'll ever have. Just being honest, like the things that we do, we bring in players that most of them have never played a snap of football because they're international, so they don't get that opportunity. And we only get 2.5 months to make them NFL ready. So that's a huge challenge, right, as a coach. And you're working with guys who are underdogs. And I have a soft spot for the underdog. So helping them prepare, seeing them succeed, I want to say I've had a total of 8 guys, I think, get onto NFL rosters. We just had a guy get drafted this past year with no experience. That's hands down the best job I've ever had. On days when it does get hard, I take a step back and I just reflect on what my purpose is. And then again, talking about one of my closest friends, Joan Catniece, she's been coaching for decades in football down south in Louisiana, and now she's at a Division III. She broke into the college ranks, and I think about everything that she's had to go through as well. And seeing her strength, that's also inspiring to me, knowing that I can keep going and I can keep making it happen. And then the last thing really is just reflecting on my faith. And I know not everybody has a faith or a belief, but I have a pretty strong one. And I always, check my purpose and check my heart. And I know that this is what I'm supposed to do. And there are players here that do need me. And again, thinking about those 3 things, that helps me keep going. But for any woman in any field that goes through something tough, I would just encourage them to think about your why, really reflect on your why, and be grounded in that, and be grounded in the people that you surround yourself with, that you trust. And even if you don't have a direct role model, I'm lucky enough to have one, just stay the course. If this is something that you truly are passionate about and something that you love, don't let anybody determine your future, you determine yours. Everything that I've tried to do, or everywhere that I've been, I've always just tried to put an emphasis on working hard and also being qualified. I think as a coach, this is such a tough sport to learn, and it's also technically it can be really difficult as well. So I always try to encourage people to pride themselves in your craft. Pride yourselves in your craft and work hard so that no one can deny you a seat at the table, and even if they do, then you just move on elsewhere. I also think there's just that responsibility as well, showing young girls that you don't have to coach football, right? We're not telling you you have to do that, but what we're trying to show you is that you can do anything that you dream of, that's possible. One of the things I always try to focus on is control what you can control, which is my attitude, my effort, and the knowledge that I give, and the players are always my priority. And I always try to make that's my purpose, that's why I'm here, It's to have a positive impact on all the players that I have, and I try to have that impact as well on coaches. And that's just like kind of really my process with dealing with any challenges that I do encounter. I wouldn't say there's too much, because at the end of the day, I find myself like I'm very patient. There's been pushback, I think, almost everywhere that I've been, but I found like giving people grace and patience, I've actually changed a lot of minds just by showing up and just continually doing what I do, which is controlling my effort, my attitude, and putting the players first. I mean, I had some stories of coaches who initially they were like, I don't even want you in my room. And then 6 months later, right, just being patient, giving them grace to work through whatever they're going through. There's somebody actually I can still call today and ask for advice. But I think with any coach, the good ones don't have resistance if they know their stuff and they just show up and they're a professional and they show that they care about the guys. I'll tell you this, like a lot of guys that I work with, half of them don't. They just found out what my age was like last week. I'm only 23. They didn't know that. They're like, Coach, you're like a year older than me, but we thought you were like 30. But I think it's all about like how you carry yourself and the knowledge that you give them. And then again, showing that you care, it's all gonna translate well in the end.